Hey everybody, welcome back to the Indie Grounds podcast. I am so happy to release this episode, so happy to speak to you all because I love talking about indie music. I still listen to it to this day. You can look even at my Spotify. Maybe I'm starting to understand why people kept in the genre of old after that they had passed. I don't know. Indie music just means so much to me, and now this is kind of just a way to be able to talk about it. And because of that, this song that I'm talking about today is so important to that genre. But before I start, like I always say in the past couple of episodes, I just have one thing to ask of you, just one thing. Just share this podcast, talk about it with just one person. Just try and spread it as much as possible. And that's it. So let's just begin. As you can see by the title, the song is called Jerk It Out by a band called the Caesars. Everybody knows that beginning synth. The beginning synth notes kicking into the drums right immediately after that. Anybody that played video games in the early to mid 2000s, I almost guarantee, especially sports video games, this song was in the playlist. SSX3, got it in there. FIFA, you got it in there. It was on iPod commercials. It was everywhere. So where did this band come from? That's what we're going to answer today. Where did they come from? The controversial lyrics to this song and what they mean. And then what happened to the band after it was over, after the success of this song. So here's the background. The Caesars, the band, they formed in Stockholm in 1995. However, what's kind of interesting, just kind of doing research into the band, including the song, in Scandinavia region, they were known as the band 12 Caesars or even Caesar's Palace. It wasn't only until they released the song Jerk It Out and became a big hit, they actually had to change their name because of the hotel. That's right. They couldn't tour with it. They had to change it. So they simply just called themselves the Caesars and left it at that. So Jerk It Out, the song, it was included in the band's album Paper Tigers, but it originally appeared in their previous album 39 Minutes of Bliss in an Otherwise Meaningless World. I remember that album, actually. I remember the 39 Minutes of Bliss album. I don't really remember Paper Tigers album very much. I just remember hearing the song and going to iTunes, and 39 Minutes of Bliss, at least from my memory, was the album that the song Jerk It Out was on. And this was back in 2002 when it was released. Now, just kind of some background to this next part into the makeup of the song before we get to the lyrics. What was interesting was I kind of wondered, what was that synth? What setting was it? What instrument was it that they used? Because that sound back then, it was so unique to the early 2000s. I kind of think of MGMT kind of had that unique synth sound as well. And I found out I had to look through tons of websites. I had to comb through articles. I think eventually I ended up finding it on Reddit. And it wasn't confirmed with the band, of course, but it was by somebody who's a musician, and they said that it's a combo organ for the synth player, which makes sense. And what's also interesting is in the middle of the song, they have a drum sample from the Monkees song Mary Mary. It sounds so similar to each other. I don't know if that's completely true. I don't know if it was purposeful that they did that. I couldn't find any more research on it other than kind of comparing the two songs being sampled together, but I digress. Let's get to the main point of this episode today. Why I wanted to feature this song other than it being so big, back in the day. The lyrics. You got the synth, you got the popularity, but it gained a whole other, I guess you could say, part in infamy because so many people, I remember this, so many people questioned what did the lyrics really mean. Now, at first glance, it seems pretty simple, right? It sounds like a person who's upset, kind of that teenage rebellion. They're challenging people. The chorus, even at first glance, is so simple. Here's the lyrics. 'Cause it's easy once you know how it's done. You can't stop now, it's already begun. You feel it running through your bones, and you jerk it out. Now, there are 3 different debates as to what this band is talking about. And what's interesting is I think the band knows it. They know that there's controversy amongst their lyrics. So they themselves have never taken kind of like a hard stance themselves as to what the lyrics mean, what they actually mean. The very first one, and I think the Caesars themselves have put this out. This is what they say the meaning of the lyrics are. But again, no hard stance on it. They just kind of explained it a little bit. The very first one, it means the expression jerk it out, cutting loose, acting out, blowing off steam, lowering stress. And it could mean anything to anyone, right? It's kind of like whatever you do to relieve that stress. Maybe whether it's listening to music, dancing, fighting, getting into arguments, getting into trouble, or it leads into the second thing. A lot of people think that the lyrics mean that it's shooting up meth, drug usage. There was a song meaning website. I can't remember the name of it, but just kind of, it just takes apart people's lyrics, people's band lyrics. And so the very beginning of the song, the very first verse, he says, wind me up, put me down, start me off, and watch me go. I'll be running circles around you sooner than you know. So people that have been involved in meth, they say that's kind of the hyperactivity of it, kind of explaining that. The chorus, we've already covered and gone over the lyrics. But they say the chorus is the endorphins running around your body. You start kind of spazzing out on the drug. It makes you tweak out. And then the second set of verses, he says, shut up, hush your mouth. Can't you hear you talk too loud? No, I can't hear nothing because I got my head up in the clouds. You can already see where this is going. I bite off anything I can chew, chasing cars up and down the avenue, but that's okay. So again, people, who have been around meth or drugs or anything like that, they say that you talk a mile a minute. Somebody's telling you to be quiet. The character says he doesn't care because he's high, he's in the clouds. So you have that definition or that interpretation of the lyrics. I'm going to get into in a minute about, my own personal things. I'd love to hear from you all, like what you think the song means. But of course, the third one, which probably is the most popular kind of underground meaning of the song, I'll put it lightly here. Some people think it's self-pleasure. It's a very popular theory. They look at the title of the song. Again, let me just kind of back this up by saying there is no proof of this definition. Also, what's interesting is a lot of people that argue against this third meaning, they say, the song, as I said in the intro, it was in a lot of children's video games. It was part of the video game soundtrack. They received invitations. They performed on TV. The song was everywhere. So you would think at that time, commercial companies, they would be on top of those lyrics. You would think they would ask, is this really what the song means? But again, stranger things have happened. Stranger songs have gotten popular than even this one. So, who's to say? Now, personally, I am amongst the group of people under the first category. I personally think it's just the band saying, kind of act out, kind of let loose, that term. And to me, it's because musicians have always been asked about maybe innuendos, certain lyrics that they put in songs, and they always try to twist things to say, they meant this or they meant that. And a lot of times the musicians, unless they outright say it, they kind of like the mystery of it, and they kind of like, you are able to define what that song means to you. The drug usage, that's a little bit. And the third one, I've actually heard that one before. People saying that that's the definition. Again, I kind of like the point of like, that song was so popular. It's so hard to see that being the case and yet still being used and circulated so much. So the aftermath now. Again, kind of reiterating, the song was on so many video games. It was everywhere. It was on an Apple commercial. That blew it up. They went on a large tour for mostly the song. I hate to use the term, but it seems like they were a one-hit wonder. Their next album was released in 2008. So many years. You think, the song was released in 2002. The follow-up way down the line was in 2008. And it was a double-sided 24-song album called Strawberry Weed. It did not sell very well at all. 4 years later, the band in 2012 went on hiatus. But what's interesting is they did 3 reunion concerts. They did one in 2017, one in 2018, and one in 2019. Who knows what could have happened? Maybe COVID just kind of slowed them down. Maybe they were kind of building momentum towards something. We'll never know. But what's interesting, too, is the lead singer, Joakim. He's actually a singer-songwriter for many other projects as well. He's kind of made his way around the pop scene, so he's kept himself busy, the lead singer of the Caesars. So there you have it, everybody. Kind of a lighthearted take on this song. It's so well known, not only in the alternative or the indie scene, but it was a huge pop song, and it still is down to this day. And the band could just not kind of break, I guess, get any kind of break after that. They kind of just disappeared. So there you have it for this week's episode. The Caesars, Jerk It Out, and I will see you all next week.